Muhammad, who was uh, what's his name? Elijah Muhammad's son, and he split away from the nation, and they had a mosque, and then that wing of the family practice basic conservative Sunni Islam. They didn't practice. I remember at one point he used to have a picture of Elijah Muhammad in there. It was really strange, and then there was this big conversion that happened. So anyway, Muhammad Ali used to he came there, and it was a big thing, and he was just kind of visiting. There was a bunch of people there, and we used to teach upstairs, on actually within the mosque, and then they had us teaching downstairs. So we taught in the basement, and Muhammad Ali came, and him and my father was like in a circle, and he was like, "Yeah, let's fight it out." So it was like some funny joke. It was like a spar. This was when Muhammad Ali was much older. It wasn't like Muhammad Ali in his prime. I was a little kid. So yeah, that happened. It's not Masjid Mariam, because that's Mariam is the NOI mosque. What's the name of that mosque? Al Fatir. I think it's called Masjid Al Fatir. Because Mosque Foundation is the mosque out in Bridgeview. I think it's Al Fatir. But shout out to Bear at Show You Roll. I should have brought in Bear. That's what I should have brought in. Bear from Show You Roll. He makes these uniforms. So if you want a Show You Roll gi, hit up showyourroll.com and get you a gi. You can be like me. Let's have a serious question. Stop searching for motivation. Just blah, 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 blah. What do you think Japan will take responsibility for do you ever think Japan will take responsibility for their role in colonizing parts of Asia? I don't know. But I feel like they have. I feel there's been some concessions at reconciliation in certain aspects. It's still some fresh open wounds. You got to remember, there's people still alive who fought against each other. You know, like they're still veterans of World War II. Old, but I mean, they're still there. And those memories are sharp in their mind. And think about Japan. Japan is one of the oldest living societies. Like there's people who live to be 100 years old. So they've lived through all of that. And, you know, some people are very much so nationalistic. Some people are very much so just trying to put that aside. Then there's new issues of sovereignty and stuff like that. But then also you got to think about, you know, Japan was basically completely destroyed, you know, and it becomes like, man, we received, and they surrendered. We received, you know, the ultimate backlash of backlashes for our participation in our aggression in the war. They got 2 atomic bombs dropped on them. Prior to that, they were being firebombed like every day. The Japanese were locked up here in internment camps, right? Basically concentration camps. America had to get in reparations. So there was a lot that was done to Japan in the midst of the war and post-war Japan, where it becomes like, well, you will want people who weren't even born during that time to, same thing with slavery, like African American slavery. Do you really want people who weren't even born at that time to apologize for certain things that their ancestors did? You know, was surrender not enough? Was 2 atomic bombs not enough? Was firebombing whole cities not enough? Was all of this extra shit not enough? Destroying the economy was not enough? Was it rewriting their constitution and imposing Western will on them? Was occupation not enough? Is continued occupation not enough? Like there's a whole bunch of shit that Japan had to go through and continuously go through. But at the same time too, on the other side of the sword, Japan fucked up a lot of people. And caused some irrevocable. Yeah, they did some fucked up shit to people on like Genghis Khan shit, you know, in the modern era, and that's kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. So, I mean, everybody's colonized something at one point or another. Everybody's had their aggressive period where they treated their neighbor like shit. And so every country in the world can point to a time when they were the aggressor and did some fuck shit to some people. It's just that this is in our modern space. Um, so I don't know. I don't have a detailed history of of exactly what the reconciliations are, but I do have somewhat of a history of what the repercussions of their actions were, and they were highly severe. Still, the only nation in the world to have an atomic bomb dropped on them twice, and not out in the country or like in the fucking middle of a city. So boom, 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 irreparable. Yeah, irreparable. I was saying I was saying revocable, irrevocable kind of thing. Do you think the U.S. will ever take responsibility for what happened to Americans with Agent Orange? I'm gonna keep it a whole buck with you about Agent Orange, and this is gonna sound somewhat harsh. For y'all don't know what Agent Orange is, it was a herbicide. Basically, they used it to kill the jungle foliage because the Viet Cong would hide in the jungles. And what they did was they had Agent Orange. There was a few other different ones too, and it's basically just herbicide. Like it would kill plants, and they just sprayed it over the jungle to kill the plants. So to make it easier to see, to give less place for the Viet Cong to hide and shit like that. And they sprayed that shit everywhere, just out the back of planes and shit. And I think DuPont made it. One of the American chemical companies made it. And the shit was super toxic. And the Air Forcemen, because I'm assuming it was an Air Force campaign because it was in the air. I don't know if they sprayed it. They probably did, but I don't know. The people who were around Agent Orange or were responsible for handling it was getting sick as fuck, and they were sick to this day. And there was a whole thing about American veterans suing, basically suing to get reparations for Agent Orange, like for them being around it and catching cancers and all kinds of shit. And there was actually a settlement reached. It's like a class action lawsuit. There was a settlement reached where each of the veterans got $12,000, basically. But that paid out over 10 years. But here's the kicker. Here's the fucked up part: is that if you took the 12,000, you couldn't be eligible for any benefits, right? Any GI benefits. You basically have to forfeit all of your potential benefits that you would get from being in the military, and probably I think some other shit too. I think you couldn't get welfare, food stamps, or some shit like that. And the veterans were pissed because it was like the lawyers cut that deal behind their back just to get to settle the shit. And if you took the 12 grand, you couldn't get any government benefits or some shit like that. So, and it paid out over 10 years, like, so 12,000 over 10 years, right? And it's kind of like, yeah, that's fucked up. But here's the super fucked up part. What's even more fucked up than that, and why I'm kind of like, fuck y'all niggas, is because, nigga, y'all was dropping that shit on babies and fucking whole towns and water supplies and, fucking rice farms and people who weren't even Viet Cong. You just assumed they were sympathizers. Like, y'all was just haphazardly dropping that shit all over Southeast Asia. And now you motherfuckers was feeling a certain ways. What about the Vietnamese who you poisoned for life? What about them? The babies and shit. All of the cancers and deformities and shit that they caught because of you dropping this shit on their country. What about them? And so it's kind of like a very like catch-22. Like you're supposed to feel sorry for oppressors and aggressors, whether you believed in the war or not, right? Like, and whether you thought the shit was harmless or not, right? And it becomes like this. Well, what about the Vietnamese? What about the Vietnamese? So it's kind of like a funky, twisted weird thing. Like our American, because Americans did that shit to themselves. I was thinking about that this morning. I was watching this economics lecture. I'm finna watch the rest of them. But it was this economics lecture, and he was talking about something called, there's a book called Unfinished Business. I don't want to read it, but I'm just not interested. But the piece about the book is that when it comes to African Americans, you only see concessions made to African Americans when there's a war. So whenever there's a war, you'll see concessions. So whether it be the Revolutionary War, or not even Revolutionary War, but like the Civil War, or if it's Vietnam, and you'll get Vietnam connected to the Civil Rights Movement. You got to make these concessions to get niggas to fight, basically. And then what happens when you don't need humans for war anymore, like you need these drones and shit like that, what happens to the race relations to those folks who you would normally need to cater to, who you really didn't give a fuck about unless your shit was in danger or you want to sell them some shit? What happens when that goes out the window? How do those race dynamics change and shit like that? I don't know if that's truly what the whole theory is, but that's just the piece. But that got me thinking about that, taking that equation out, only making concessions to blacks when there's war, that all of the wars that we fight or that America has fought have been against themselves. I was watching these what's his name? Christopher Hitchinson debates. And one of the things that he was adamant about, outside of him not fucking with God, was he believed in the Iraq War. Like he was about that shit, WMDs, the whole shit. And he has a great, like he always does, he lays it out very, very succinctly. But he kind of partially mentioned, he mentioned it, but later. He didn't mention this first. Like he just mentioned, Saddam Hussein ain't shit. And then on kind of cross-examination, he goes back to, admitting that we actually put this nigga in power. Like the U.S. government is responsible for putting him in fucking power. And they're also responsible for putting a bunch of dictators in fucking power, right? And maintaining those power, dynamics with those dictators. And then they wind up having to come back and unseat those dictators. And what it felt like was America has never really fought a war, at least in the modern era, against someone else. It was always fighting itself, right? It was always fighting in some way to make your life more comfortable, right? Fighting to get you to come across and be a consumer, fighting for you to come across and buy into the American dream. Like the battle wasn't against other people. It was against America's own greeds and bullshit. And in certain cases, America found itself fighting. Even in the greatest example is Osama bin Laden, right? And Al-Qaeda, which America fucking created, and ISIS, which America fucking created. And like all of these things that we create by proxy, or we cause the downfall, or we cause people to run to dictators by installing folks that the people don't fuck with. And it becomes this really weird thing of we're fighting ourselves, right? And in some cases, you're fighting against planes and bombs that you sold to these people at one time or another, right? Like fucking crazy shit, right? And that trend is never going to end, until America just completely, but it doesn't look like it's going to end. As long as America has the world's largest military budget, that's just going to keep rocking. But this case about Americans doing this shit to themselves, it's the same thing with this. Same thing with Agent Orange, right? Like, you're doing this shit to yourself, right? Like, you decided to throw fucking Agent Orange out the back of a fucking plane, right? With some strategic, like, there's too much jungle, maybe we should just burn the jungle down type shit, right? And in the process of that, you kill your own people, or you expose your own people to toxic shit. And this isn't just true for Vietnam. And this is what shit gets kind of swept under the table when it comes to the military. And if you talk to a lot of veterans, like, they are exposed to a bunch of shit, and they got to sign waivers. They got to sign all this paperwork, which basically indemnifies the military. And that's why they have a VA, right? Part of having a VA is that the dirty little secrets of the military get kept with the military, right? Where it's like, man, these dudes are fucking sick. Something happened to these dudes. They got infected with something or some chemical agent. They got exposed to some shit. Don't send them to the regular hospital. Bring them to the military hospital. That way we can keep that shit under wraps, right? So I feel that might be a part of the play. I don't think it's the whole part of the play, but I think that's part of it as well as one of those benefits of having that system is that a lot of the fuck shit that the U.S. military exposes soldiers to, which ain't got nothing to do with war. Like, not saying it ain't got nothing to do with war, like not in actual shoot, I shoot combat, but like exposing them to certain chemicals and certain agents, certain vaccinations and certain things that they give to troops, certain things that they test on troops and send them out into the field. And because they're indemnified, they're basically kind of these military guinea pigs. And even until you talk to veterans of like Iraq, they feel like, man, like I went out there and something happened, right? And I'm fucked up. And I don't know what it is. I didn't have this shit before I went into the military. When I went into the military, I was fucked up. And I came out of the military, I ain't been right since, type shit. So there is this kind of element of a lot of what America does, it does to itself, right? You wanted these fucking nuclear weapons, right? You wanted that shit. You wanted to push to see how far you can go to get radioactive material and refine it and drop it on a motherfucker and test it and play with it. There's a history of that shit. People weren't begging or asking for that shit. Y'all were asking for that shit. And now that it's out in the world, it's the most dangerous shit on the planet. But you did that to yourself. You showed the efficacy and all of this other shit. You built the centrifuges and created the processes and subsidized the science and did all the other shit to create these fucking horrific weapons. And now everybody's like, yeah, that shit worked. We want to be like America, right? It's so again, it's kind of like a you did it to yourself suicide thing. And even with that said, though, um, there has been uh, there has been veterans of Vietnam who actually go back to reconcile with the veterans of the Vietnamese, of the Viet Cong. Um, and there's certain groups that try and find some common ground, and there's apologies and all kinds of shit that happens. And they just look at it like, we were young on both sides. We were young men passionately fighting about something that we believed in. America probably not. They were motherfuckers were forced to go. But the Viet Cong's like, look, we really believed in this shit. We really believed that the French were fucking the worst, and they were. And we wanted these people to fuck out our country. We didn't want the shackles of imperialism on us. But you did that. The West did that. You went in there and treated them people like shit and put up mock governments and bullshit and stratified the society and did all this other goofy shit. And then when people resisted, you're the one who cracked down brutally on motherfuckers, right? And the expectation was that they just finna get in line and these motherfuckers not finna go into the jungles and fight. Um, but at the same time too, there's internal things that happen in those countries where there's oppression of certain particular groups within the countries themselves. Within Vietnam, where the Vietnamese are oppressive to this particular group which came in from this way, or this happens or that happens. So nobody's saints or angels, but at the same time too, you can't like complain when you like did that shit to yourself. Like that's fucked up. But there you go. Are you familiar with neoliberalism? Because you kind of perpetuated with your promotion of brand building. That's a weird fucking thing to say, but I'll take it. First, let's get the definition of neoliberalism, because I don't know what the fuck that is. Okay, thank you. I love when people just accuse you of shit. Like, yeah, you know you're doing the work of the white man whenever you come over here wearing white t-shirts, nigga, because white people are white and white t-shirts are white. A modified form of liberalism tending to favor free market capitalism. Okay, what's free market capitalism? It's very easy. Free market capitalism. A capitalist system and a free market system are both economic environments that are based on the law of supply and demand of free market economy. Free market system is an economic system based solely on demand and supply. There's little or no government regulation. Okay. And I am perpetuating how am I perpetuating that? Sleep. You're too bright. Yeah, I want to, jump in and explain.
Yo. Sorry, my camera's all fucked up, so you won't be able to see me that well. Can you hear me?
Yeah, maybe you need to go to the free market iPhone store and get you a new fucking phone.
Yeah, hey, I wasn't dissing you, brother, man. I'm a big fan. So let me just explain. So neoliberalism is an idea that really came out the 80s, right? It's saying that our whole life should be organized around how business works. So it's saying, so instead of like listening to the Black Panthers and the Civil Rights Movement and redistributing wealth and empowering people and saying that everybody deserves to live free in this world, neoliberalism was a response saying, actually, you only succeed if you work hard at it, right? So when we look at the idea of building a brand, it's the idea of myself. I should build myself like a business for my own interest. And that's disconnected from the interests of my community, my people, right? So neoliberalism is an idea. So saying, like it's more important to work for profit, to build up your brand, to build up your business, to work as a business instead of put the community interest first. Does that make sense?
What are the community interests?
Yeah. So like in this context, when we talk about building the brand, if we talk about building a brand disconnected from the state of our larger community, then like what are we doing? It's like actually creating more Black millionaires and more Black rich people doesn't actually help the collective.
Right? No. What are the needs? I understand the. I'm asking you what are the needs of the community?
Yeah, so needs being like human rights, right? So people needing like food, like people needing resources, people needing what they need to survive, right?
Yo, you cover the phone. You covering the phone. You covering the mic or something.
Sorry about that. So yeah, people, so people need the things that help them survive and thrive, but people also need power so they can impact, their communities, like self-determination, right? If we don't have power in our communities, we don't have power over our schools, we don't have power over local government, we don't have power over police, we don't have power over anything that controls our lives.
Right. Why not?
Right. And it takes collective action to resolve that.
Wait. This is a lot. So you're saying the needs of the community are food and power?
I mean, food things people need to survive, right? Food, shelter, energy.
Food, shelter. What else? Energy. All right. What else?
Social, right? So we need, and we look at like healthcare, right? So like not even physical healthcare, but also mental healthcare, right? We're social creatures, so we need social places to, where we can like be with one another, and we need like healthy social spaces, not spaces that encourage us, to harm one another, but spaces that encourage us, to build and love each other, right? Those are things that we're lacking, has been taken away. And like, capitalism teaches us that we just focus on getting our bread, making sure we good, making sure that we and our people we know is good. At this, even if that means exploiting other motherfuckers in the community, that's okay, because that's what freedom is, like build up the brand high enough, So I'm just saying, like, we should, I think, focusing more on the collective action and what we can do with one another, like for one another, is, the way to go. But I wasn't trying to be super critical of you, man. I'm a big fan. Been a big fan.
My issue is, man, take care of
the kids is running around.
Yeah. My issue is that all of the things that you said, that a lot of the things that you even, and I'm gonna just keep it a buck, a lot of the things that you said are things that you wouldn't have right now if it wasn't for the free market.
That's not true. Right? That's not true at all. It's development. That's not true.
Okay, so I'll put it to you like this. You got a refrigerator, yes?
Well, I don't have a choice. It's not freedom. Like, it's all because the free market is all that I have available to me doesn't mean that that's like a good choice or like I chose it or it's functional.
Hey, hold on. And I'm very much so an objectivist. Like, theory is cool, but theory don't win the game. Putting the ball in the hole wins the game. Okay? So
collective action wins the game.
Not if you ain't got Michael Jordan, it don't.
So, not if you don't what?
Anyway, do you have a refrigerator?
Yeah, I have a refrigerator.
Okay,
I have
wait. God damn.
Sorry.
Does your refrigerator work?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have food in your refrigerator?
Yes.
How much food in that refrigerator you got from a grocery store?
Some of it. Some of the food's from the grocery store. Some of it's from farms and stuff like that.
Okay. The other food that's not from a grocery store and the food that's not from farms, is there food in your refrigerator from your garden?
Not my garden.
Okay. Is it food from your neighbor's garden?
No, not my neighbor's garden, but some of my like friends in the community though.
Some of your friends in the community. Okay, so it's from the community garden.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And how did you get that food from them? Did you take it?
No, I asked. I mean, that's part of the collective action. We share food with each other.
Wait. Did you take it? Did you pay for it? Did they give it to you? Did you?
No, that was just given.
It's just. Right? Food. How much of that food is a part of your daily consumption?
It's a part of it most of the day.
Much.
Either feeding me and my kid. Yeah,
they gave you enough food. I'm just talking about from the gardens, from X out the grocery.
Oh, just from the gardens? Oh, yeah, the gardens isn't that much. It's just some fruits and veggies here.
Just some fruits and. Did you buy a refrigerator from a store?
Yeah.
Did you?
I had no choice in the matter, but yeah.
Do you know how it works?
Ish, not much. If it broke right now, honestly, I'm not gonna say I could easily repair it without spending 2 hours on Google.
Okay. My point is this: that a lot of the things that you have right now in your house right now, you wouldn't have if it wasn't for some form of capitalistic endeavor, some form of free market endeavoring, right? Period.
That's like saying this country wouldn't be what it was if it wasn't for slavery. It's like saying every rich country wouldn't have the wealth it had if it wasn't for like the slavery and like exploitation. Like, sure.
But that's true though. Every country that is wealthy in this world has had slavery. Every single one of them. Slavery is not just attached to America. China, Japan. however you want to play it, there's been some form of slavery or serfdom or servitude in every single modern country, everywhere, right? If there was no the amount of food that you would have today, I'm not talking about 20 years ago, I'm not talking about the 80s, or the amount of food that you have in your house right now that's available to you right now, you would not have if it was not free.
That's not true, bruh. That's not true. Because you're making it seem like free market capitalism fairly beat out every single way of producing, when that's not true. Free market capitalism is the way, and it is, nothing's even actually free market, but capitalism is the way of the world because of force, because of militarism, right? Because people are forced to do that, right? So I don't have a choice but to participate in the capitalist system. I don't have a choice.
Part of that is when you're dealing with raw materials, when I'm trying to extract materials from one
But you don't
place.
got to do it in a capitalist way. We can do that in a different way. We see, like, development before Europe colonized Africa, we was on our own path of development. And path of development that wasn't merely exploitation, saying we are just gonna, we are gonna exploit people to take a resource out the ground for other people's gain, and those people who do the labor don't get shit. That's a capitalist European invention. Africa wasn't on that path of development. It was forced upon us.
First.
Mm-hmm.
That's not African history.
What?
That is propaganda from certain groups in Africa pushing back against colonialism and trying to invent a prehistoric Africa. And when I say prehistoric, I'm not talking about caveman days. I'm talking about the 1800s or the 1500s, where there's this assumption that Africa was just this utopian of collectivism. That's some
I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is capitalism in the European context was introduced. I'm not saying everyone in Africa, I'm not saying people in Africa didn't exploit each other. I'm not saying everything was a utopia. I'm not saying there wasn't different areas of development and different histories. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to be like, oh, if you just go back to the way Africans did it, you'll be free. That's what I'm saying. What I am saying is capitalism, was fucked up.
That these concepts were introduced into Africa via colonialism, that's not true, right?
How is it not true?
Because any system of monarchy anywhere in the world, right, is not self-sustainable. It only exists through systems of servitude, serfdom, and feudalism, which unfairly take.
I feel you saying.
From the agrarian, from the culture, from the countryside to power the city.
Yeah, no, I feel what you're saying. That's true. It wasn't, capitalism isn't the only oppressive. Yeah, like feudalism, serfdom. There's other ways of exploitation. And I'm not saying that's not true, right? But when we talk about how it is today, right? When we talk about what we want this shit, how we want this shit to work today, yes. Right? I think we gotta be able to look at history. Look at other experiments. Look at other ways how other people did shit. In the collective ways, and doing shit together.
You don't have any examples of that. But you don't have any examples of that.
I don't have any what?
That's my position. That's my response. Is that I hear what you're saying. Search through history. I'm telling you that I've done that search through history, right? And everywhere I go, I find capitalism, exploitation, serfdom, some type of system where the collective. The only place that you find, from my experience, where that's not the case is Buddhist societies, right? And not Buddhist societies, but actually just Buddhist temples, right? Where they only eat what they beg for. They don't grow shit, right? Their whole existence is based on, I have a bowl. If I don't beg, then I don't eat. I'm 100% dependent, and that's true today with Buddhist societies, Buddhist temples today, where the people who are in the temples, they solely rely on gifts, solely rely on people bringing gifts of food, not gifts like I got you a new cell phone, food, because if we didn't have this, we would starve, because we're not allowed to participate in certain aspects or certain pieces of economy. It's against our will. That's a very small segment of society, very small, that actually operates like that. The majority of society, very much so, is operating under principles what you may not want to define as being humanistic and natural. You define it as kind of like being superhuman or subhuman, as in the form of capitalism. But you can't just haphazardly or just casually not mention serfdom or feudal society and how that was structured and how it was built, right? And how every single capitalist society that we define as capitalism today, and we only call it capitalism because that's what the fuck's Karl Marx called it. They didn't call that shit capitalism before Karl Marx, right? It was either mercantilism or some other type of fucking name or whatever. But at the end of the day, all of the societies that we have today, even those in Africa, whether they were colonized or not, right, that have some form of kind of process of modernization, have dabbled in the fucking free market, right? And will continue to dabble in the free market, right? And if Nike came to them and said, hey, we want to open up a factory in fucking Ghana, they're going to say, abso-fucking-lutely. Come on in, right? So I'm not even trying to get into the depth of that. I'm just getting to the basics. Your refrigerator right now that you're going to open up to feed your children and feed yourself is full of food that you would only have. You would only have. Not your ancestors, not your parents, not people came before you, not people after you, but you. You wouldn't have it if it wasn't for free markets. You are profiting off the exploitation of people growing that fucking food. The farmer,
by no choice of my own.
The farmer can grow that, but you don't got any of your own food in your garden, out of your garden in your refrigerator. You just said that.
Yeah.
Right? And the portion that you got as gifts from your friends and community who do have gardens is not enough to sustain your survival.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if this was...
I'm not against markets, Lupe. Markets is not... Markets and free markets are not the same thing. All because you have a market doesn't mean it's a free market. You feel what I'm saying? Like, to me, capitalism is a useful term because then we're talking about power, right? We're talking about today, right now, in this century, in this time, who are the people in power? What is the source of that power? What do they control? Right? And then how do we defeat them for our own self-determination?
Right. So who are they?
Right.
So answer those questions.
So like, who is the capitalist, right? So like, because it's talking about like who is the ruling class ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Right. We have people who own a bunch of shit, people who own a bunch of companies, people who own a bunch of lands, right? We have the political elites, people who are like in the office or in a group that like influences office, like like Alec and Tea Party and all that shit. You know what I mean? Like in general, the 1% and the powerful political elites to help keep the system moving, right? So when we talk about capitalism, we're talking about a small amount of people who are in charge of all the resources instead of us, right? And I really want to make this real because to me this is relevant when we talk about like violence, right? In my city, you know what I mean, in like Chicago and everywhere, right? Like it's summertime, people are broke right now, so violence and homicide is up, right? If the solution to these If the solutions to our problems is always, let's try to get more money so we can eventually get closer to being in the ruling class, get closer to being the people of all the resources and like use the model that they have, because the model of getting wealth and getting money by any means necessary, that's what we're talking about in this capitalist society. That's not history.
Okay.
History doesn't.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I hear you. First, a couple things. The niggas who are killing niggas in Chicago have money.
Mm-hmm.
They're not broke. You know how much a Glock cost? These are the same niggas.
Yeah, not free, but...
Oh, let me finish.
Okay. Go ahead.
Around in the videos with chains and diamonds and all type of Gucci and bags and throwing money on the floor. These are the same niggas that'll be out on the street shooting at niggas. Or having their niggas shoot at niggas. So the idea would be, if niggas just had money, they would stop shooting each other. These are the niggas with money. So that can't be the whole thing, like just broke niggas running each other.
I mean, I don't think I said that. I don't mean to simplify it to just that. But I hear your point. And like to me, I think that's crucial because it is bigger than just money. Go ahead.
ties into kind of, I guess, the points that you're trying to get in at, right? When you talk about power, who has the power? And you mentioned the Koch brothers, or you mentioned Alex. Actually, one of them niggas is dead, right? So
Yeah, but there's three brothers. There was three of them. One of them's dead, but there's still two of them and their family left. So it's, you know, they still devils.
how did they get that money?
They was a big corporate. I think it was fossil. I think it was fossil fuels. I think they started out in fossil fuels or some big resource like that, and then they diversified and they own a bunch of shit now.
A bunch of chemicals, and they were able to use that money to invest and buy this, and invest the money and buy that.
Yeah.
And they're some real dicks, right? But they're dicks because of their political opinions and their views on certain things. But again, one of them niggas is dead, right? And tried his best not to die, right?
Yeah, I'm pissing on his grave. Don't give a single fuck.
Right. At the end of the day, everybody dies, no matter what you take none of that shit with you. And at a certain point, it becomes you're giving up. I'm not capitalist because I don't have control of the resources, right? What some people don't realize is that you don't know who you are until you get resources, right? Until you get in that position of power. Your point, everybody shouldn't have that. There's some white people who shouldn't have it. There's some niggas who shouldn't have it. There's some black people who definitely shouldn't have it. There's some Chinese.
You have a wrong conception of what I'm talking about now.
Wait. If you think that you aren't a capitalist because you don't have control of the resources, you're wildly mistaken. The power that the Koch brothers has comes from you. Their power doesn't self-generate. Power doesn't work like that, especially in a...
No, that's not true. But then why did they spend millions of dollars influence politics, right? Why did they spend millions of dollars building the Tea Party and moving the Republican Party right, and having all these policies that take away our ability to give ourselves resources on the streets?
Yeah, but McDonald's does...
That's just as big as their... Go ahead.
McDonald's does the same. You're not talking shit about McDonald's. You're not pissing on Ray Kroc's grave. He do the same shit. Pizza Hut does the same shit. Little Caesars does the same shit.
Yeah. Right now, Alec, if you look at what Alec, who's a part of it, it's all those companies, it's all those corporations.
Yeah. All the companies.
They all
or some of those companies are in your refrigerator right now.
I don't have a choice, Lupe. We don't have choices.
Definitely got a choice.
Brother. Okay, look at this. Do you think? Go ahead.
Have a more convenient or comfortable choice. You definitely got a fucking choice.
Lupe, it doesn't matter what I do. If me and everybody I know did not participate in corporate capitalism at all, capitalism would still exist.
Bruh.
Us not participating in it doesn't hurt it.
Yeah,
right?
It does. I guarantee. Listen, I have a list.
Nah, not without collective action. Not without collective action. Like, we need a mass movement of people to take away resources from that shit. Not just people not buying. That's like saying buying black can defeat defeat all the white corporations when black people don't have nearly enough money to do that shit.
Actually, black people accrue a ton of fucking money.
Nah, that's a myth. Most of our money goes to survival. If you take out the rich motherfuckers, if you look at regular people, check out Jared Ball's The Myth of Black Buying Power.
Right.
I mix real life. Read that shit, because most money that black people have goes straight to survival and doing whatever we have access to.
No, that's not true. Listen, I'm from Chicago too. I'm from the hood too. I'm a nigga too. I'm a smart nigga too. I just mentioned Chicago because I know you from. I've lived in almost every side of the city, or worked in every side of the city, from the south side, north side, to the side, to downtown. I've been all over that bitch. That's not true. There's some very wealthy, rich motherfuckers and very upper middle class black folks that live in Chicago, and that live all over the fucking place. They live in Texas. They live in New York. Niggas ain't out here just broke.
Yeah, but proportion wise, right?
Now,
like if you look at percentage of our population with money versus percentage of not. Like, sure, we have a few people on top, but the most of our communities, we ain't got shit, and we don't got the power to change shit without collective action, without building political organizations.
You just told me that black buying power is a myth, and I just told you.
Yeah.
Listen.
It's overstated.
I just told you that the reason that the Koch brothers is rich is based off and the Walton family and all these motherfuckers. and Jeff Bezos is based solely on the every microtransaction that a black makes adds to their bottom line. You may not be buying from them directly, but you're buying the products that have their chemicals in them that is in your refrigerator right now. So instead of you making the decision, right, to curb or really dissect what is what and what you're actually financing, but then to say, well, the black people don't have any buying power, it's a myth, then you ain't got nothing. There's no...
No, it's politics. Political power, Lupe. Political power, Lupe. Our city budgets have billions of dollars in them, right?
Yeah.
Those that we should be looking at that money. It's like that's money we should be getting.
But where does it come
It's the
It don't come out of thin air.
Go ahead.
It comes from your taxes. It comes from people with jobs. Right?
Yeah. Most of it not from us.
It's not just black people taxes, white people's taxes.
Yeah.
People's taxes. It's not just black people shit.
Yeah, which is why we need to redistribute the wealth so everybody can gain, not just reparations for black people, but all poor people deserve to have access to the wealth.
Okay, I mean, do everybody want access to the wealth?
That's what people deserve.
No. I actually, is that what everybody wants? Does everybody want to be wealthy? Everybody want to be Jeff Bezos?
No, but I think everybody wants to be happy and thrive. It's not about being wealthy. It's about, living a good life and not having to suffer because you don't have access to resources.
Okay, Pete, are you unhappy? Fuck everybody else. Are you unhappy?
I am unhappy sometimes. I'm happy sometimes. Like it's a struggle to be happy. Like when you poor, when you deal with shit, you have to. Being happy for a lot of us isn't something we just are. You know what I mean? It's something we got to be intentional about keeping up with our mental health, and not getting down. You know what I mean? I'm on these streets. I'm on these streets protesting. I got to deal with cops and Nazis and all this shit coming at me. You know what I mean? I'm out here, homie. Like it's a struggle to be happy, but I try to be happy, and I try, and I try to spread joy whenever I can.
Right, but you put yourself in those positions. No, go do shit.
Because our people need to be freed, bro. Like this is, to me, I'm just saying this. We've had a movement in our history since Europeans entered in our continent, right? Queen Nzinga of Angola, people like that, right? Fighting back resistance, fighting back against slavery, causing the Civil War, fighting back against the plantation owners, having rebellions, having strikes. You know what I mean? Fighting back against lynching, civil rights movement, the Black Power movement, right? This is a part of that. There's always been a struggle for power. Political power and economic power, and those things go together. We never have economic power without political power. You can ask Tosa about that.
There's a certain class, and this is the last thing I'm gonna say about this. There's a certain class of black folks, right? A certain class of people who are very intellectual. They're very technocratic, right? They're very modern. They're very civilized, and what they like to do is they like to project all of these kind of bourgeoisie mentality, and it's all this kind of intellectual, sparring and all of this thought shit, right? And then they project all of that, these needs of the people onto the people when people never asked for that shit. Like
people never asked to stop suffering. People never asked for health care, for food, for resources.
Listen.
Go ahead. Sorry, you're not talking about. You're making a bigger point. Excuse me. I'm sorry.
Listen. There are people who are good. They're like, I'm good. I'm straight. I got my little thing over here. I got my little thing over there. I'm not interested in all of this high-end theory shit, and this dude's got this and this dude's got that. I'm not interested in trying to live like the white man. I'm not interested in trying to live like the black man. I don't care about this shit. I don't need a refrigerator. I'm straight. I don't need you to put me into a place of kind of high-tech society to make me fill in, because I understand that comes with its own set of costs. Now, if you're chasing happiness through materiality and intellectuality, I guarantee you that you're not going to find what you're looking for. You're just going to find with another update. There's people who don't fuck with that cycle, right? Who don't look at the world and life being in the world being an intellectual or political exercise every 15 minutes. That's why a lot of these entities and groups burn the fuck out. and they lose a lot of the representation and the people because it's not sustainable. And they find themselves in very contradictory positions that hate the Koch brothers, but every item in your house has financed them. And instead of saying to get out of that cycle, I'm going to just grow my own shit and eat what comes with that. That you're gonna be shortages. You're not gonna have enough to have 3 square meals a day. You're gonna be eating once a fucking day. Right? But because the white man can eat 3 times a day, I'm gonna eat 3 times a day. Right? Because the white man sleep on a mattress made out of these space age materials, then I need to sleep on that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's what I'm saying, brother. What I'm saying is, I know this refrigerator is full of shit that I didn't make, and in order to change that reality, you know, in order to change that reality, we need to build economic and political power. And I understand you're saying that's heady, but to me, this is what that means. But let me break this down simply, and this will be it. I'll break it down very simply. I'll go there. Go ahead.
I'm gonna let you rock.
Cool. I'm gonna break it down very simple, and I appreciate all this time you're giving me, brother. But just one more thing.
But
so
in order to change that dynamic, you need to learn how to make fucking refrigerators.
Yes.
It's not that to do with economic, political theory, power. You don't even know how the refrigerator fucking works.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm just so let me unpack what like that shit means. Like power, that economic power means just saying, okay, how can we as a community provide for ourselves things that these corporations bring to us, right? So it's not saying how do I just like make a garden? How do I make this shit for my own household? Nah. How can me and everybody in my community work together and cooperate together so we don't need these corporations, right? And how can we come together as a people and decide how, for instance, city budgets are spent, right? City budgets that pay for the police, right? That lead development and gentrification, right? That control our tax rates, that controls how the wealth is distributed. You know what I mean? It is not unreasonable to say, yo, we can build power by, you know, getting together and deciding how we want this shit to go and fighting for it through having protests, fighting for it through elections, fighting for it through boycotts, you know, fighting for however we got to do it. But that collective action and understanding that our destinies are tied. I don't want to just provide for myself and my family just so we good. I want to make sure we all good. And the only way we can do that is by collective action and fighting back against the people with power, with the people with resources, and the people who, you know, they put shit in our community to sell for us. And whenever we try to do for ourselves, there's a violent reaction to that shit. We got to fight back against that shit. And I hear you, man. I appreciate you giving me all this time, man. Like, I have a lot of respect for you and your knowledge and your art. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you letting me on here.
Peace.
Peace.
So here's my advice to you all, and I hope that this revelation adds some value to some of y'all out there. And I see a lot of the same folks reinforcing and reciprocating the same thing. Now, you know Lupe Fiasco because of the shit that I've said and the things that I've done. And hopefully that's why you're here, that you appreciate the things that I say of having some level of truth. And I'm not just here to just talk shit to debate. I'm only really here to tell you to wear a mask. And to promote To Go Get House, the EP, myself and Kaylin Ellis, featuring Graham Burris, Krista Torres, and Virgil Abloh, available right now on Apple Music, Spotify, Tidal Music, and Pandora, and YouTube Music. So I hope that when I speak to you, that you're hearing what I'm saying. And that you take it with a certain grain of significance or a certain understanding that I'm not just talking about shit that I don't know or that I haven't done. You benefit much more on a daily micro basis being in America as a black person than you would anywhere else in the world. It's fucked up, but it's true. What you get as a birthright for being in this country grants you access to so much shit, from little things that you don't even think are like, oh, I ain't worried about that shit, to big ass shit that you can't escape. That you actually have a grocery store that you could break into and steal food from if some shit ever went down and you needed to feed your family. There's places in the world where that's not the case. If you are hungry, you're going to starve to death. There is no dumpster to eat out of. There is no society which wastes a lot of food and throws it in the dumpster every day. And you, who don't have a job or don't have the ability to buy food to even go to the dumpster and eat out of, it doesn't exist. There are places on this planet where you don't have protection. You're not protected. There's no rule of law. You will disappear in the middle of the night. You and your whole family will disappear into the bowels of some fucking dungeon with no trial, no arrest report, nothing. You just vanish because you came on Instagram and talked about how bad the president was. You vanish. There's places in this world where you plug the refrigerator into the wall and nothing happens. Or you plug the refrigerator into the wall and it works for 2 hours. And it cuts off for 5. Then it cuts on again for 2 hours. Then it cuts off for 8. There isn't even no point to even have a refrigerator because there's no electricity consistent enough to power the shit to keep the food cool. The food is gonna rot faster putting it in the fucking refrigerator that doesn't work. You might as well just leave it out to dry in the air. There's places like that in the world. Whether you're black, white, whatever the fuck you want to be, doesn't work. Please, in your efforts to do battle against the forces of America, please recognize that even your ability to do battle with the forces of America is granted to you by being an American. Because all this shit you talking about how much you hate this system and you hate that system, there's some countries you start popping that shit in Africa as a black person, you're gonna disappear. And a black person is the one that's you're gonna fucking disappear from, right? You know where else the police kill black people? With just off top, I'm coming to kill this person. You know where else that happens? In Africa. It's a whole documentary about the shit, whole police squad. They don't know how to solve the crimes. They know that they're not finna get the resources to rebuild or put the community center or whatever. So how do they deal with the gangsters? They just go kill them. Blow these niggas' brains out in the middle of the street, in front of people. They know who did it. The police know who did it. Everybody in the community knows. He stands over the nigga and blows his motherfucking brains out. Not even on some he had a gun or a body cam. He ain't had shit. He didn't even resist arrest. Nah, I just killed this nigga, and that's just what that's gonna be. I told him not to come outside. The nigga came outside and I fucking killed him. I don't champion America. I don't. America has its flaws. But America has its gifts. You built America. You built this place. Your blood, sweat, and tears. You built it. I don't give a fuck if a white person tries to tell you that you don't have a place here. Because you should, the same way that I was telling people I'm wearing a karate uniform and motherfuckers laughing at you because you're a karate man. But you know, now I beat your motherfucking ass. If you really want to pull it, don't get fucked up. So stay over there and laugh. Because if you come over here, I'm going to fuck you up. You built this place. Your ancestors built this place. But at the same time, too, you're not a slave. You don't want to be a slave. You don't know what it feels like to be a slave. Understand that the reason that you are here in America, the real reason why you're here and you're not in Africa right now is because some Africans fucking sent you here. Because they were complicit in going to get you and bringing you here. That somebody paid you, paid your African friends, your brothers, these kings, these queens, paid them to go get you. That some of these queens and these kings, they didn't have to go get you because they already owned you. And what these slave masters, what these white people were buying, were slaves that these African kings already had. If you're gonna do the history and you're gonna provoke and you're gonna get upset, do the history. Do the whole history. Don't just do the history that biases you to what you think is correct for your own position. A lot of the shit that the Black Panthers was talking about was great, but a lot of it was also fucked up because you're bringing over Marxist and these kind of Soviet and these kind of, you do know that Che Guevara killed a lot of motherfuckers, like a lot of them. No trials, no none of that shit. No, let's try and work this shit out. No, let's reconcile. Like, no, gather them niggas up and take them to the back and blow their motherfucking heads off. That's the same nigga that you wear on a t-shirt. Right? You gotta be careful about the ideologies because they seem to be going against the man and the things that underpin those ideologies and why those ideologies even have any weight. People want to be anti-capitalist. It's communist propaganda. The reason that the Communist Party has a certain level of influence and power because they have no problem massacring their own citizens in the tens of millions. Tens of millions. Okay? In order therefore to be a China that we understand now and see now and get our Jordans from, is hundreds of millions of people had to die. Right? The same rhetoric from Stalin and Lenin that hello. Yeah, you can just leave it there. Do I need to sign for something? Oh, okay. Yeah, can we do it through the door? Hold on. I'll be back.